13 nights, 13 straight nights of American bombs falling on Iranian soil, night after night, obliterating target after target. And last night, something changed. Something the regime was not prepared for. Something that tells you everything about where this war is ultimately headed. For the first time since the phase of this war reignited, the United States rolled out the big one, the B-1 Lancer, leaving devastation in its wake. Stick to the very end of this video because we're going to see precisely the 3D warfare that's taking place right before our very eyes. We're going to see what the final phase of this war will actually look like in the end and why it will indeed inevitably be the beginning of the end for the Iranian regime once and for all. We are officially in night 13 of the resumption of this war, and last night's strike package looked nothing like the ones that came before it. Centcom confirmed forces struck Iranian military command centers, drone storage facilities, communication networks, coastal surveillance sites, and remaining maritime capabilities, all specifically targeted to further diminish the threat Iran poses to civilian mariners transiting the Strait of Hormuz. That, with the help of over 50,000 American service members, remains open. The whole of Hormuz remains open despite Iran's intentions. We also have confirmation that last night, for the first time since fighting resumed nearly 2 weeks ago, the United States deployed the awesome, the extraordinary B-1B Lancer, flying directly out of the Royal Air Force Base in Fairford in the United Kingdom. If you don't know, the B-1 can carry 24 one-ton bombs, 24 2,000-pound bombs. It can carry dozens of cruise missiles, and it does it at supersonic speed. So this isn't a drone loitering over a target, right? This isn't a single Tomahawk fired off the deck of a destroyer sitting in the Persian Gulf. This is the United States reaching directly out of a home airbase in Britain across an entire ocean and an entire continent and putting steel on target deep inside Iran without needing to rely on a single regional airfield that could be politically complicated or geographically vulnerable. Trump himself hinted publicly that this is only the opening act. He told Axios reporters just yesterday that he's now actively considering an even larger strike package than anything we've seen up till now, even during the whole of Operation Epic Fury campaign back in the spring. Meanwhile, explosions were reported overnight in Ahvaz, the capital of Khuzestan province, along with fresh detonations in the port city of Bandar Abbas, Jask, Nain, and Isfahan province, Keshem Island, dozens upon dozens of other targets. We're also getting reports from Iranian opposition outlets claiming that IRGC Quds Force commander Esmail Khani, now the Quds are responsible for the regional proxy munitions. This Quds Force commander Esmail Khani was among 23 senior IRGC officials killed in the U.S. strike targeting a key command and control facility. Over just the last 13 days of this renewed campaign, over 60 IRGC fast attack boats have been eliminated, air defense systems wiped out, coastal surveillance networks destroyed, missile and drone storage facilities reduced to rubble, night after relentless night. This is now officially a systematic, methodical, deliberate dismantlement of an entire military apparatus, piece by piece, until there's simply nothing left. And what's so key here is that this is merely one dimension to the 3D chess that Trump is playing here in Iran. If you only watch the nightly Centcom readouts, which are very good, by the way, you want to check them out on X. But if you only read Centcom readouts night after night, target counts, bomb tonnage, and the like, you're going to miss the forest and the trees entirely. What we're actually witnessing right now is Donald Trump playing three-dimensional chess across three distinct yet interrelated theaters simultaneously. And the brilliance of it is that each one reinforces and accelerates the other two. Now, I know there's some analyses that see Trump playing 4D chess. I actually offered one this week in one of our videos that sees Trump playing a 5D chessboard. Those are all great. They're all excellent. I just find it, when all is said and done, I find it easier to condense everything into 3D chess, three theaters where this war is being fought simultaneously. So theater one is the military theater, right? What we've been looking at thus far, the most obvious one. And the entire objective here, plain and simple, is to permanently wipe out Iran's ability to project power itself and through its proxy network. So that's why taking out that Quds commander was so important. So this is about rendering Iran militarily inert, as well as its regional proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias scattered across Iraq and Syria, and of course Hamas in Palestine. That entire architecture is collapsing in real time, right in front of our very eyes. Hezbollah is pinned down, fighting its own losing war with Israel, and just simply can't lift a finger to help Tehran. In fact, Lebanon's president visited the White House this week for the first time in 15 years. And the U.S. is now working to train and vet Lebanese units to purge Hezbollah from the nation for good, potentially even paving the way for Lebanon to do the unthinkable, to join the Abraham Accords. The Houthis in Yemen, who could have entered this fight against the United States with everything they had and closed off the Red Sea, they've largely chosen to sit this one out, to sit on the sidelines rather than invite the same fate as their patrons. Now, they have of late been hitting a couple of Saudi tankers in the Red Sea, so we'll have to see what comes of that. But thus far, they've been very, very restrained. Obviously, I think that's a deterrence issue. Now that the Assad regime has been toppled, Syria is completely gone as a logistics corridor for Iranian weapons and fighters, as well as Russian influence in the region. And in fact, that's precisely why Trump lifted sanctions on the new Syrian government, because Syria is effectively flipped to our side on the chessboard. And now, night after night, Centcom is going directly after the IRGC's own command and control apparatus, targeting the very officers who coordinate that proxy network from the top down, again, allegedly including the killing of Khani himself in last night's strike. When you eliminate the commanders who run the proxy network and simultaneously sever the network's regional legs one by one, you're not just winning individual battles anymore. You are permanently amputating Iran's entire ability to reach beyond its own borders and threaten anyone else ever again. You are destroying Iran's entire regional architecture. So that's theater number one. The military theater designed to devastate, designed to render Iran and its proxies completely, totally, and permanently inert. Theater number two is the economic theater. All right, so I like thinking of it, you've got the military and you've got money, military and money, okay? So this is where the naval blockade and the global restructuring of oil supply chains comes together into a single devastating pressure campaign. So you know that the U.S. Navy's counter blockade has already cut Iran off from an estimated $500 million a day, right? We've talked about this a lot. They've cut them off from $500 million a day in desperately needed oil revenue. And they're doing that by controlling who gets to enter and exit Iranian ports. And Centcom's own official numbers show they've officially redirected a dozen commercial vessels just in the last 9 days alone. But here's the genius part of the strategy that most of the legacy media analysts are just completely missing. While Iran bleeds out financially in real time, and keep in mind, they were already economically devastated before the first bomb dropped. While that's happening, the Gulf states are simultaneously building permanent infrastructure specifically designed to bypass the Strait of Hormuz forever. At least seven major pipeline projects are now actively under construction across the region, running through the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, and the Gulf routes out to Fujairah. That's in the UAE. So Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iraq are all racing right now to build these bypass pipelines, specifically so that the world's oil markets are never, ever, ever again held hostage by Iran's decades-old threat to close that strait. Now, again, us rendering them militarily inert should do that, but this, again, is a hedge for that. This is how they're working together. So this isn't just about starving the regime today. It's about permanently stripping Iran of ever being able to exercise the single card it has held over the entire global economy for 47 straight years, which, of course, is shutting down Hormuz and interrupting 20% of the world's oil supply. Once those pipes are finished and fully operational, which should be around 2027, the Strait of Hormuz simply stops being a weapon Iran can point at the rest of the world. And as it turns out, this re-architecture of the global oil supply chain in the Middle East, it doesn't complete the puzzle here. There's another oil exporter that's risen up to take up the mantle. There's another oil exporter that's risen up to fill in, as it were, to replace the oil that's being lost by virtue of the havoc in the Strait of Hormuz. And that is happening in our own backyard. That's American energy producers. They are cashing in on every bit of this realignment. U.S. crude oil exports hit a record 6.4 million barrels a day back in April, and it hasn't slowed down. It's the highest level ever recorded by the EIA, the Energy Information Association. Total U.S. crude and petroleum product exports surged to a record 12.7 million barrels a day the same month, with the EIA confirming crude exports alone averaging 5.6 million barrels a day in April, 21% above the previous record. The week ending April 24th marked a genuinely historic moment, the first week in modern American history where the United States officially operated as a net exporter of crude oil. And that's really comes down to WTI, West Texas Intermediate. They have ridden this entire wave. Every barrel that used to flow uncontested through Hormuz that now can't gets replaced by American oil, loaded onto tankers at ports at Corpus Christi and Houston, which together handled the lion's share of that record export surge. Corpus Christi alone, as I understand it, had the busiest month in its history back in March at its port, and its most active quarter ever. Again, this has not slowed down. So that's the second theater here. That's the economic theater, which is both choking out Iran with the U.S. enforced blockade, all the while the global oil supply chain gets completely restructured away from Hormuz and realigned around the centrality of U.S. energy.